I'm Ryan Graveface. I am the owner of the Graveface Museum along with my wife, Chloe. Say hi, Chloe.
Hello.
And we are here today with Mr. James Sparks, who is a very close friend. He knew John Wayne Gacy and many, many, many others, notorious individuals. The reason why I'm conducting this little emergency meeting of the minds is I made a post on Instagram and Facebook maybe yesterday or 2 days ago about how many counterfeits of John Wayne Gacy paintings there are in the marketplace today, and availed myself of the service doing free COAs for people who are interested in purchasing, not from me, I don't sell Gacy paintings, but from unknown sellers, um, which isn't just things like Facebook Marketplace, but even really well respected auction houses, you know, kind of true crime heroes all the time flip fake Gacy paintings. I don't know if they know that they're real or fake. They're just trying to make their 4 or 5 grand. So basically, long and short, since I made that post, it didn't go viral, but it went viral in our tiny world. And I've gotten a million questions and just thought that it would make sense to discuss this subject in a more open format because clearly people are equally fascinated by the amount of fakes, um, as much as they are with the real. So that's the intent of this little meeting of the minds. So let's just kind of get a debriefing in case no one knows who any of us is. James, would you give a little bit of background beyond what I just said?
Sure. My name's James Sparks. I'm actually, uh, I guess, a true crime enthusiast. I've been in some sort of criminal justice background for the last 25 years. I met John Gacy in 1992, visited him from 92 through 94. Developed a relationship with him based on my visits with him. I had 11 visits with him, carried out, quite a few paintings for him and mailed them out for him. Have seen, hundreds of John's paintings, and basically, have been, I guess, captivated by the Gacy case since I was a young boy. So it's something that's important in my life. It's been important for a long time. And it's one of those things that I actually think about every day, the Gacy case. So that's the long or the short of it, in a sense.
So let me ask you this: when back in the day when Gacy was still alive, do you remember there being counterfeits?
During that time, I don't recall per se counterfeits. There was always the question of whether or not John painted all the paintings that left death row, whether or not it was, someone helping me out with a pogo or a patches, or we know for, 100% for sure that the signature bird series was actually done by someone else. John would take the ink pen, go around the beak, sign the front, and then sign the back, thus signature bird series for John Wayne Gacy paintings. But as far as true counterfeits, you know, you didn't see anything like that. John was so narcissistic that if someone, basically, that was cutting into his profit. If someone was going to fake something, he was going to do something about it. So you didn't start seeing the fakes. I guess probably I started noticing them probably within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And then within the last 3 or 4 years, right after John was executed, you couldn't find a Gacy. There was no Gacy's to be had. They were all scooped up. They were sold. They were held onto by private collectors. And within the last 2 or 3 years, apparently there's just a Gacy tree grown in somebody's backyard where they can go pick a Gacy anytime they want it and put it on the market. And the thing about it is, you physically need to have this in your hand to look at it to see if it's a fake. Because I think what we've found out in regards to this is that the painting front and the painting back per se do not match up with the original logbook or log scroll that Gacy kept of all his artwork. So that's what you're dealing with right now. And it seems to be happening more and more frequently. Like I said, 10 years ago, you couldn't find a Gacy. Now, where do all these Gacy's come from?
Yeah.
Uh, and it's just, it's something to think about.
Well, I will say the counterfeiters are directly responsible for John Wayne Gacy's younger sister, Karen, and I becoming friends because years and years and years ago, I have all sorts of Google alerts set up for Gacy stuff. Now it's a moot point because every time I get pinged, it's fake. But um, there was a website that I don't even know if it still exists called Mercari, and I saw that there was a slew of Gacy paintings on Mercari in Las Vegas. So I, of course, like signed up for an account and looked, and they were all like $300 to $500. I was like, well, this they a looked odd. The paintings looked odd. B, clearly it's too cheap for a Gacy piece, even a bad Gacy. It just felt wrong. So I got in touch, and basically I knew it was I can't remember which one I got, but I knew it was fake, but it was $300, and I was like, you know what? He has so many fakes that he's trying to sell. I want to own a fake so I know what that looks like. And that's one of the best decisions I ever made because it was sent to me, and smelled new for starters. When I opened the package, it smelled like they had just painted it, maybe within the past 60 days. Beyond that, it was an okay Gacy sort of fake. Like it looked vaguely like something he would paint. But the most telling part was the back of the piece, which very clearly they had taken a real Gacy painting, scanned in high resolution the back where he does his serial number, signature. Sometimes he writes a little message. And then they printed that out and applied that to a brand new canvas. Very honestly convincing, because if you were to send someone cell phone photos of that piece, it looks good enough, and the serial number would check out as a legitimate Gacy. So I was really happy that I did that because it clued me into how they were doing this. I demanded my money back. He told me to keep the painting and actually did refund me the money. So what is the interesting part and how Karen is tied into this at all? Uh, I had written her a few times historically and didn't get really much of a response. Later that summer, this guy who sold me the fake, his name is Manny. He's now deceased. Manny sent me a text, and he was like, "Hey, here's proof that I know Karen." And he sent me a picture of him, Karen, and his wife next to a slot machine in Vegas. And he's like, "She came to Vegas to sell me all of John's belongings." And so I mean, just red flags went up because this guy had already sold me a fake painting. So I got in touch with Karen, sent her that picture, and said, "Is this true? Because that's fucked up. Like, you don't know who you're dealing with." And she was like, "No, that guy, I was walking through a casino and some guy asked for my photo. And I reluctantly said yes, just because I didn't want to be mean. She had no idea who it was." So, like, I don't know if he was stalking her or how he would know that she was there, or if it's truly a crazy coincidence. I think he told her in person that he was a big fan. He saw her on Oprah, and it would really mean a lot to him to get his picture taken with her. But how that bonded her and I then gave her the backstory that I just mentioned about the fake. And I was like, hey, just so you know, this guy is saying because this picture exists proves that you did in fact sell all of John's stuff to him. Really, he's just using that as a fake COA to sell fake shit. Um, and in that, Karen and I became very close very quickly and started weeding out all these fucking shitheads. And what I uncovered is that there's a whole network of these people, which I will not name because that's not my style. As bad as I want to name names, uh, Manny was in Vegas. He's deceased. His boss, like the main guy who did know Gacy for 2 months before the execution, he is actually the sort of main culprit. Um, and he's got operatives in Canada, Florida, really all over. And they peddle. I mean, they. I've only found like 100, but my gut tells me there's probably like a fucking thousand. Because there was even an art gallery about 5-6 years ago that they exhibited at under the guise of real shit. So like this stuff goes deep. Um, that was a long rant, but I just wanted to explain that in a weird way, the counterfeiters are what led me to meeting Karen and us having a mutual bond, which is to destroy all the bullshit. Um, so, anyways,
Well, Ryan, I think that's so important that you lay that out, and that's probably when you released that statement the other day. I think it's important to let people know exactly how you are able to basically authenticate their piece. So, could you go a little bit in the, I guess, the historical perspective of what you actually have and what it consists of and who is it from, so you can sort of validate the people who have real paintings versus, forgeries or fakes. And folks may not have it.
right. Yeah. So, Karen and I, like I said, we hit it off. We became friends. And very quickly, she decided that she wanted me to become the sole heir. I don't know that that's the right word or if I'm using that right, but like the guy that possesses all of her stuff, which is John's stuff. And the main thing that at that point she had mentioned that she had was his logbook. He kept logbooks. Usually, it didn't time out exact, but usually every 2 years was one logbook. And when John was executed, the older sister disowned John. So like she wanted nothing to do with it. Karen and John still had a relationship. So Karen was there for the execution. She couldn't actually watch the execution, of course, because that's against the law, but she was there and then cleaned out his cell or what was in his cell at the time of the execution. The logbooks were part of that. I mean, just tons of documents and paintings and, obviously a shit ton of letters. Um, just really important stuff. Really important stuff. Anyway, so the logbook is what had intrigued me because Gacy only did a handful of video interviews ever. Um, and of course, in every video interview from the late 80s to the early 90s, you see him clutching the logbooks. He'll whip out the logbooks and tell you all about them. He was very proud of them. Uh, because it just shows his meticulous nature. He kept track of everything, everything. So when I befriended Karen, we agreed on a price for the lot. Certain things she was going to donate to my museum, and certain things she was going to sell. And I truthfully don't even remember the price. It's kind of a moot point at this juncture, but uh, that logbook was like the, you know, priceless artifact for me because I had been seeing interviews with Gacy since I was a little kid where he talks about this fucking logbook. So yeah, Chloe and I were lucky to be in Karen's kitchen, and Karen whips out the logbook and takes us through what it means and because there's it's not like it's code per se, but there is like a Gacy language that
Yeah.
you have to study to fully understand. Um, and yeah, so the paintings are a part of that. I mean, he details everything that he does, but like every letter he sends, I could even authenticate letter. I don't want to get into authenticating letters, but I could authenticate letters because he literally details whom he's sending letters to on a daily basis, packages, large packages. Again, the he painted over 2,400 pieces on death row. 861 861 of which were from 82 to 88, and the remainder from like late 88 to his execution. So um, it's just a lot of information. So that's why it's not like I'm just lucky to have this information. That's all. Like I was smart enough, I'm kidding, to intentionally buy a fake painting, um, and it led to all of this. Really, dumb luck, so to speak. But I've been just clinging to this information, and like you'll send me a screenshot, James, of so and so is selling another painting, and I'll look it up in the log, and sure enough, it's fake. And I'm like, this is fucking insane. These people are charging like literally $4,000 or $5,000. Because keep in mind, for those that don't know anything about this, Gacy piece, when I started collecting, they were between $500 and $800. Um, when Gacy was actually alive, they were 75 to 150 ish. So I would say a Pogo the Clown really truly should be 2,000 $2,500 right now. That's the sought after one, even though it's the thing he made the most.
Yeah.
Um, it's sought after because that's his, acid bath. Everybody's used it. It's his calling card. So I understand why people want that piece, but it's actually the most common and quite frankly the least interesting. Um, but like his lesser pieces, the landscape pieces and that sort of thing, really shouldn't exceed $1,200. And that's kind of how you know if you're talking to someone legit or not, is if someone's saying this is 4 to 8 grand, you know, the chances of it being legit are not good. Unless now the fakes have brought the market price up, which
Well,
is
that's the
also,
thing. Yeah, because it's bigger than just the, people getting screwed over monetarily for buying fake stuff. It actually, the whole fake scammer, bootleg Gacy realm has actually changed everybody's perception because people walk into the museum where I mostly work, I'm there every day. We're open and everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are like, oh my God, this must have been a fortune. And it's like I can tell that you have been referencing this website, I'm sure, or seen, an auction house that is, should be reputable, but they're selling things that you have looked into and proven that they're not legitimate, which even before the logbook, you were you were very thorough with how you went about collections. So what
well,
I guess that
if you
process
have
is
if
interesting.
you have a letter, Gacy didn't paint anything randomly, right? So every real painting should have a letter where he tells you what he's painting for you and the number therein. Um, Now, should the person you're buying from give that to you as a part of the sale? Who cares? But they should be able to provide that letter as the true COA because it's Gacy saying, "Yeah, I'm painting this shit for you. Thanks for the money order or whatnot." Um, so I think that's how I started because I didn't fucking know. I mean, I bought one random Gacy from a stranger to
Yeah,
start, and then every painting after that came from people that knew John.
right.
Um,
Well, because those always come with more worthwhile stories along with the pieces. It's the
yeah,
pieces half of it, and hearing all of these personal details and stories and context is really the most interesting stuff to me.
Yeah, well, because again, he painted Pogo the fucking Clown a zillion times, uh, but could you buy a Pogo the Clown from somebody that had a fascinating story about meeting John? Of course, and that's going to be a far superior Pogo the Clown. So, um,
And there would be, just a minor exception to that as far as letters going out. And that's whenever he had someone, exclusively handling his paintings and he did a bulk load.
true.
Like I literally transported a load from Menard, to Louisiana,
Right.
60, 70 plus paintings. And those were sent to his art dealer just to be sold. And those did not have letters accompanying. It was just the bulk.
Well, to you did actually have a sheet of paper that spells out all that shit that you were taking out, though.
Yes, yes, but it wasn't to specific
True.
sellers. It was just that. But there was a record from John of what went where.
Yeah.
And I can remember my first visit, the first pogo I bought from John during that first year, 92 was $50.
Nice.
And then, he started raising it to 75 and then going up. And I think it needs to be stressed too, that you're not saying that everyone that has a Gacy or everyone that got sold a Gacy, they're not everyone who sells it may not know that they actually have a fake or forgery to begin with. The painting could be transferred several times, and the original person who bought it may not know that they had a fake to begin with
Exactly.
because of the amount that is out there. I
Oh, yeah.
think that what's going to happen is you're going to have so many duplications of serial numbers per John serial number system that are duplicated, and you've got a pogo that matches actually a bird's, or vice versa, or you've
I
got a
see that all
skull
the time.
clown that matches a patches, and honestly, the such a low amount of paintings, you can't run it. You cannot not run into forgeries or fake serial numbers consistently
Yeah.
or inverted serial numbers. And that's the issue with it. Um, and what you're doing is you're just trying to provide people with an outlet to say, hey, this is what I know. What you're going to run into is that people are going to get agitated and angry because, I bought this. This is supposed to be fake. They need to understand that you're just providing a free service. That you didn't sell them the painting. You're just providing them information that you have, validated, documented, and authenticated per se. Uh,
I'm,
and people are going to be pissed if they drop 5 or 6 grand on something that's not real.
since COVID, I've calculated think just that what I've seen, and I'm not on the internet all the fucking time. Um, it's about $500,000 worth of paintings. Like that's insane money to in ripping people off. We're not talking.
And that's just what you're seeing,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if we were talking a couple grand here and there, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal to me. But I
But
am just so fucking sick of people coming into the museum flexing that they own a Gacy, and I get excited because I I want to bond with those people, and then they whip out the back. They'll show me on their phone, and then I'll take out the my Google Drive, right? Like, yeah, that's not it. That's not the right one. And they're mad at me, There no one's ever like, "Thanks, man." Like I'm actually one dude who is actually a producer on one of the shitty Gacy docs that came out. I won't name which one. He, a really nice guy, started collecting Gacy pieces around his production work. I think originally to use for B-roll, and then got hooked collecting Gacy's. But he was one of the few people that he came to me after he received the piece. Something was suspicious about it. He came to me and was like, "Hey, weird question. I don't know that you can even look this up for me, but can you what painting should so and so serial number be?" And I told him, and he's like, "Motherfucker, I knew it." And he did get his money back from that seller. But then I just saw that seller sell that same piece on fucking Facebook. So it's like, it's a, it's just crazy shit. And people so badly want to own a piece of true crime history. But the reality is, here's the thing. If you just do proper research, and I mean proper research, you will find these OG dudes that, well, and females, that interacted with John, and they still have a bunch of shit. Like, they still have mountains of stuff. That's how I keep buying new shit. And guess what? Because they're awesome people, they sell all their estates for very, I mean, it's very affordable, I think. It's not $5,000 a piece, you know. Um, I think the most I've ever paid for a Gacy is $2,000, and it's because I wanted it, you know. Most it's 800 to 1,200 bucks still to this day. So we're talking per piece, because I usually buy estates. So living estates, because I want the stories. But yeah, it's just, you don't have to rely on morons that have true crime websites and charge you money for COAs, and or my favorite are these guys that say, I will write you a COA. What? You're the one selling the piece. You're literally the one selling the fake fucking painting. How can you do a COA? If it was coming from anyone else, maybe, maybe, maybe. But a lot of these fuckheads literally just do their own COAs. It's what the weirdest shit I've ever seen. And for some reason, the true crime collectors are dumb enough to think that that's real.
Right, because people speak like they are an authority and they have a website on the internet. And so that makes, like, people don't know where to start for this stuff. And
That's
so
true.
these people are just providing a Google search result, and people click the first thing. They're like, oh, this must be how these people get these Gacy paintings. Because nobody actually would, they assume that, I'm guessing that these websites and all this stuff have authenticated their shit, basically. Like, you would think that those people would be doing this, or maybe you're not thinking of that at all. I don't know,
Yeah, I don't know. I
but
can't
yeah,
speak. I can't
it's
speak for
yeah.
anyone.
I don't know, but I know that it's like, if you were to wonder, I want a Gacy painting, how do I get that? Go to Google, because that's what most people do when they're not sure how to do
What?
something. And then something pops up and it's like, oh, this looks legitimate. He's been selling this stuff for 6 years, and oh, he's all over Instagram. It's like, okay, well, I trust him.
Yeah,
But
I mean, yeah. Even the auction houses
yeah,
now,
well,
which
that's,
which a lot of people write me and they're like, "But it was a reputable auction house."
I
Well,
know, but that doesn't
that
mean anything.
all they're doing is taking from a consignor. Like,
Yes.
it's not like the auction house knows how to
How,
authenticate
right.
Gacy paintings.
No, like, these people aren't authorities on any of this stuff. I mean, and really, I think this dialogue is proving that there are very little people who could be authorities. Like, really, you're it for guaranteeing authenticity with paintings,
Well, I
letters.
I can I can speak about
Yes.
everything. James can speak about the pieces he carried out. Rick Staten can speak about the pieces he carried out.
Yeah. There are.
Oliver Joseph Byfield can speak about the pieces he carried out. Well, not carried out, but he shipped. Um, so there are people that can speak about, their personal experience, and they actually knew John. So, like, much respect. It's just, they can't technically validate. Sparks. Weren't you getting like a fuck ton of people begging you to basically do COAs on pieces through
Yeah,
Instagram?
I was fixing to mention that. I was like, I got lambasted asking, hey, can you authenticate this? And it got to the point where I said, on my old IG, uh, I'm not going to do that. There's too many flakes flooding the market. I can't authenticate anything just via pictures. Uh, I needed to literally physically see this in my hands. And then it didn't matter. People still lambasted me with questions. And then when I basically said I'm not doing it, then, somebody starts talking bad about you or something like that. The IG account that I had got shut down because somebody made a complaint because it was violating community standards. There was nothing on that account that was illegal or disrespectful to victims or anything like that. Literally shut down because of someone, I guess, got angry.
Yeah,
Uh,
you
for,
pissed off the wrong person.
yeah, for no reason at all. And I've always been honest about it. And I feel bad when people get the fake ones. It's really bad, especially if you got one, because honestly, who would not want to own a John Wayne Gacy painting?
Right.
John is when it's all said and done, he's number one as far as the serial killer culture is concerned. You know, it goes back to Gacy, and it's it's one of those things where uh, multiple people have found a way to um, make money and do it at the cost of people who probably don't have that much money. And it's just sad. And, I don't know what can be done. It just makes, I'm pretty much fed up with the whole true crime genre anyway at this point. It's to the point where it's not fun collecting. It's it's almost become competitive. Back in the days, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when people were writing and getting stuff, there were a group of us, there were 5 or 6 of us, and we'd get something and, hey man, a great job. You got this letter from somebody, that was tough to get. We were all happy for each other. And now it's like people are writing letters to inmates saying, this person's going to sell your stuff, when the person writing the letter is actually getting stuff to sell to begin with. It's this vicious cycle. But Ryan, I want to actually, if you don't mind, and Chloe as well, I wanted to sort of, I guess, ask you some questions because a lot of people may not know Ryan Graveface or Graveface Museum or your record store or something like that. So if you don't mind, let me ask you a few questions because I think that's part of people understanding the reason for this. Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't know anything about these questions because I didn't tell you I was going to ask you questions. So let me ask you this, and if you don't want to, that's fine. But who is Ryan Graveface?
I don't know. um, you know, it's a fair question too, because 99.9% of people that would watch this would have no idea who the fuck I am. So I'm glad you're actually asking. I am not a true crime guy. I don't collect true crime. I have a ton of true crime stuff, but it's usually because I would buy an estate to get the Gacy stuff, and it would come with other stuff. I have really no interest in true crime. I like Geen. I love Gacy, obviously. I'm not saying he's a good guy. I'm saying I like collecting his stuff. But I run recording labels. That's what I do for a living. So I have a label for the past 23 years called Graveface, which is all indie music, shoegaze, psych, indie stuff. And then TerraVision, which I started in 2014, which is all horror soundtracks. And then about 2 years ago, I started getting into home video. So do Blu-ray releases, working on um, 5 features right now, one of which might actually get a theatrical release. So that's really like that's my real existence. Um, the museum, Chloe and I opened maybe 4 years ago or something. Really because we just had too much shit in our bedroom. Like climbing over a box of Gacy paintings became unappealing. So I also have record stores in Chicago and Savannah, Georgia, and the primary location for that used to just be littered with this sort of stuff. And uh, I just own so much stuff. I mean, like literally Gacy wise, I have over 10,000 pieces. But it's not just true crime, like tons of sideshow stuff, lots of satanic stuff, lots of Oddfellows funeral stuff. I own 400 pinball machines and arcade games. I'm like a classic hoarder. Um, Except I hoard cool shit, and well, cool to me. So Yeah,
and you find ways to do it.
that's who I am. It's true. I am not a true crime aficionado. Um, I am a huge fan of psychology, and that's what I was going to go into before I started writing music when I was late high school, and declined a free ride to Michigan University to study psychology in order to pursue writing music, which I'm in a million bands. Um, so yeah, that's basically more or less me in a nutshell.
Chloe, do you want to add anything?
um, I mean, he covered all
Yeah,
of it. I think that was thorough. That was good.
yeah. With
Yeah.
that being said, let me segue into this. So, Ryan, you're a writer, you're a producer, you're a director, you're a filmmaker, you're a documentarian, you own a record label, you're a multi instrumentalist, uh, you can play pretty much anything. You're a decent man. You're a kind person. Why John Gacy?
I don't know if it's just from living in Norwood Park when I was younger, or um, there's I always say this and no one understands it because maybe I'm not explaining it right, but there's something very relatable about him with the small business ownership and I mean, believe it or not, like the guy was massively hardworking and really did a lot in a short period of time. You know, if you consider when he got out of Anamosa and started his own company, I mean, it was really 7.5 years of busting his fucking ass and busting the ass of younger people who helped him build all these places. But still, like he definitely had a drive and dedication that is very relatable to me because I don't have a personal life. Like there's no, Chloe and I don't go on vacations. We barely see each other, which I'm not saying is a good thing. I would like to see her more. We work all day, every day, but it's also the universe that I've created. There's not really an option at this point. If I want to keep growing it. And I just feel like outside of the rape, torture, and killing of people, there's like a relatable content there. I mean, and even thinking about like his second marriage, she still says nice things about him, and the kids still call him dad. And like, there's a lot to Gacy that I think is more interesting than other serial killers to me. Like everyone that I've been working on a Gacy documentary forever that hopefully will be out at some point soon. We were working on the animations today, the interstitial animations, so that's a good sign. That means it's close. Um, but everyone that I've interviewed for that has nothing but nice things to say about John. It's like they'll always say, "Of course, I don't like the fact that he raped, tortured, and killed people," but and there's just something fucking fascinating about that to me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Um, with that being said, and because you're trying to sort of help folks out, not sort of, you are going to help people out as far as authenticity. Um, Personally, how many Gacy paintings would you say that you own?
I think the last time I counted it was 237, but I'm going up to Toronto in like 2 or 3 weeks to get another 38. And then head into New York City this summer to get another 20. I'll have 300 by year end, which is just fucking, I mean, it's so stupid because the thing is, it reminds me of this time that I was really happy because I bought Bill Helmer's estate. Bill Helmer's the guy that published The Question of Doubt, even though online there's a much younger person that claims he published that for John. Don't believe that. Don't believe anything, basically. Come to me. Uh,
Mm,
well, actually, don't come to me. That's going to be a lot of It's gonna be a lot of questions. Anyways, but Bill Helmer published that book for John, and I bought everything. So like the little stamper tool to hand number, or not hand number, but stamp number the books 1 through 500, the whole everything. And in that, of course, were the residual copies that he had of Question of Doubt, of which yeah, I gave you one, right, John? James, yeah, okay. But anyways, I posted a stack, probably 30 books, put it on Instagram, like I must have said something stupid because it really seemed to piss everyone off. They're like, how many fucking books do you need? They go for $2,000, which they're not worth $2,000. Pay $250 to $500. Don't pay $2,000 for Question of Doubt. I'm also reprinting that. Karen is having Chloe and I reprint that right now. So don't waste your fucking money if you want to read the book. Anyways, but yeah, I'm getting to that point with the paintings, right? Where, by year's end, I'm going to have 20 Pogo the Clowns and 15 Patches and 10 Skull Clowns and 15 Mansons and probably 5 complete sets of the Hi Ho series, maybe 6 actually. It's just it's insane and nobody needs it, but every estate that I buy, there's like 1 or 2 paintings that I don't have, like one of the velour paintings or like the collection I'm buying in New York. There's a great commission piece of the person I'm buying it from, which I can't wait to own, which obviously is one of a kind, right? Because that's, Gacy painting that person. But largely speaking, most people were buying. That's why there's so many Pogo the Clowns, right? He was populating the same shit again and again and again. Which is why you hear things in the media about assembly line and, Gacy didn't paint anything, which is fucking dumb. As you already stated, the signature bird thing is.
That's where that whole thing stemmed from.
Yeah, and it's far more compelling. Now, there are some pieces, like John Pecoraro did 40 pieces for John. I own one of those. I own a bunch of Pecораros, but I own one that says Gacy. That's definitely a Pecoraro. But I mean, stylistically, you can tell. Just like the bird paintings they don't look like John. That's I think that one was all those bird pieces. I believe was Albanese. So, anyways, Gacy's not good with hands. So if you see a Gacy piece that has really good hands, it's probably not a Gacy. So it's either fake or it's fake, meaning it's actually sold through Gacy but is real. Which I know gets complicated, but there's not that many. As if you buy Gacy's from 82 to mid 88, they're all Gacy's. It was just when he became pop culture famous, late 88 till his execution, that's when he literally needed help knocking shit out. So as long as you're not buying, if you're like, I want 100% just a Gacy piece, get it from that time period. There's no one helping him. I mean, he was famous, but he wasn't famous. He didn't know G.G. Allen, and he wasn't doing all these punk rock covers and all that shit. That's what made him famous in the later half of his death row sentence. Yeah, sorry, that was a long rant.
No, I think it's important, to basically, in a sense, let people know that you're not somebody that owns 5 Gacy's and you're offering to, authenticate something. And it's not only, it's important to know not only the amount of Gacy's you have, but it's also very important that you've done your homework. You've studied John. You've got multiple boxes and boxes and boxes of authentic documents from, court proceedings, from PDM records, the whole ball of wax. It's not something that, hey, I'm putting this post up trying to offer somebody a service for any sort of attention or what have you. You've become a true Gacy historian in a sense, based on all the information that you have. And, you shared some of that information with me that is mind blowing. I've held it in my hands and I was like, how did you get this, man? This is like an important piece of Gacy history.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that, Karen precipitated some of that, but it's not something you're just, I want people to know that it's not something you're just saying, blowing smoke out your ass. You literally have all this information and all these documents to authenticate your research and what you know about Gacy, which makes it so important. The documentary that you mentioned briefly that's coming out. And I guess what I would like to ask you is, um, what would you like people to know about John in your documentary that hasn't been already told to us or spoon fed to us through all the other docs that we've seen in the past 10 years?
There's so much with that. I mean, the primary stuff for me is, and it's been referenced but then dismissed in various podcasts and docs, is the whole accomplice theory. It's not a theory. I mean, he literally had people help him. I can prove who did what and when. I can prove using receipts when John was out of town, when people were at the very least abducted, but realistically probably killed as well. I mean, I'm actively working right now on, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but I've been able to like triangulate his movements in all these different cities that he was traveling to from 76 to 78. I mean, he was traveling before that, but that's when he was in his like murder spree mind. Um, and I've got the hotel receipts, I've got the where he was actually doing a job for PDM receipts, I've got every single food receipt, gas station receipt. So you can pull out and say, well, this is the area that he was in for these 7 days, police department, any missing people during that time period, any murders that are unsolved during that time period. And that's been the hardest thing, because what I'm learning is, especially in the Midwest, like people just want to be done with shit. They're like, fuck you is kind of the attitude. Um, so I'm making some progress. Don't get me wrong. It's just everybody wants to belittle that. They're like, you know, we already went down that path. Okay, cool. Can you just show me what research you did? No. Okay. Well, what is looking down that path? What did you do? Um, and of course, no one actually, I think they looked into it, meaning they said amongst a board of people, this could have happened.
And then they move on.
That's it. That's looking into it. Um, I mean, just in the past week, so basically, like, there's literally like 10,000 plus documents pertaining to PDM, his company, and it takes fucking forever to go through, because I actually built a calendar from 1970 to his arrest, and I'm cataloging everything. So like when employees worked at which location, which is important. It's all very, everything is important. How much they were paid. I've been tracking all that, because some weeks you'll see. I keep freezing. I don't know if it's freezing for you guys, but I think we're all frozen. Okay, I think we're back. Uh, Case in point, there's a series of payments from PDM to uh, 8212 Summerdale. So 8212 Summerdale would be literally across the street. I am not going to name him, but he's dead. He's deceased. But I know that guy. Um, and the payments to from PDM. So, like, in other words, if PDM was doing work for this guy, it would be payments to PDM. These are massive payments to this guy. Massive. Like way more than, we were talking like $2,500 in 1976. in October. In November, another 1,500. In December, another 1,000. Adds up to like 10 grand over the course of 12 months. I, of course, asked Karen if she remembered anything. I don't know why she would. She was already living in Arkansas by that point. Um, my theory, my working theory, is that that neighbor saw something and John talked his way out of it like he always does. And then that neighbor saw something and then John kind of talked his way out and greased the palms. Like it's literally paying. I mean, it makes no sense otherwise. Now, of course, I have no proof of that. But that's my point. I just found that like 2 days ago is what I'm getting at. So I will continue to do research on that, and I will eventually have some better conclusion. Um, but every day I'm working on this shit, and like yesterday, I found a Gacy owned property everywhere. um, Wisconsin, Michigan, two different Illinois houses that aren't Summerdale, by the way. And it's not that Miami Avenue fucking property that every documentary talks about. Other properties. Um, two in Florida, one in Lake Havasu. Property all over the place. Why? Why? Karen said, I have no idea. He never mentioned one time that he owned property anywhere but Summerdale. Uh,
And the timeline on those are interesting too, because I think the first you showed that the first property that he purchased was like immediately out of prison, right? Anamosa.
Within 3 months of living with his mom on Kedvale in 1970, he started paying into a Florida property. I have the address. They never built a house on that property. I found an article from 1985 this week about that real estate development company and how they were screwing people over. I'm guessing Gacy saw an article in a magazine or something that was like, own your palatial estate in Florida, pay 250 a month for the next 3 years and it will be yours. Talking about the land, not the property. And Gacy, of course, fell for that shit hook, line, and sinker because he's Gacy. And nothing ever came of it. But then the payment shifted. That company went under, started a new company in a different city in Florida. Gacy started paying that company as well. So just curious, but I did find a news article about the first company. It's the same company, but the first name that they used, and it states that only 3 houses were ever built in this huge development. And the way the way the journalist writes about it is so flippant. He's like, yeah, because no one ever really moved here, it's a perfect place to bury bodies. Ha ha ha. Like he literally says ha 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 in the article. And he states, I'm not kidding. Like they found bodies. So I've been trying to figure out what bodies they discovered there. Now, I'm not suggesting that has anything to do with John. Uh, but it's just there's so much to this. Like,
Yeah, there's so many tentacles that all are worth looking at because there's just so much. And
I mean,
just the amount of information that you possess at this point, again, it's all worth looking into because you find stuff every day.
yeah, I mean, I am definitely the sort of like foremost authority on Gacy at this point. Like, literally, I own everything and I know everything. I called a realty company that he was making payments to yesterday. I couldn't believe that they were still open up in Norwich. And I was like, hey, this is real weird, but anyone that works there today that worked there in 1976? And she's like, no, that was my dad. He's dead. And I'm like, okay, well, let me tell you why I'm asking. And I said there were these series of $2,000 payments for a property, but he didn't ever put in the notes what that property was. Is there any way you have any documents from the 70s? And she's like, no. We've moved 2 or 3 times and have gotten rid of everything, which of course was a bummer for me to hear. But then she was like, oh, I knew John. When my dad died in 1980, I took over the company then. He started that business, I think, in 69, this realty company. And she was there all the time. Like, she helped him answer phones and whatnot. And she told me, and I actually believe it, because she said a couple very personal things that I thought was believable, and kind of proved it to me. Um, that Gacy was this realty company's maintenance person. She's like, yeah, anytime there was anything, we brought Gacy in. So he was there at least twice a week, and he gave me a ride a couple times. She told me a couple personal things that I won't. I didn't actually interview her. I was just literally making a phone call, so I won't give away her life story. But yeah, I mean, super interesting to. Like I said, every day I find these little things, and all that would have taken is for her to be like, "Yes, we do have a box in the basement, 1976. Here it is. Go through it," and then I would have that address. Um, Now, that's only step one, because what is an address? But my working theory is, if this motherfucker had, I have 8 properties that he owned right now. If he buried so many people at one property, why is it just that property? Like,
Yeah.
why not other properties if you own them?
Right.
So, you know, I my working theory of Gacy, and again, it's theory is not even the right word, because I can prove some of this shit very easily, is that the 33 people that he was executed for killing, well, he actually wasn't executed for killing those people. Yeah. Anyways, that he was arrested for, um, he didn't kill all of those people. And then furthermore, he killed way more people. So it's a confusing thing for people to understand. It's just some of those bodies I can attribute to other people, his accomplices.
Mhm.
And then there's all these other bodies that were not attributed to him that he actually killed. So the whole
Yeah.
that's why my documentary is like 30 plus episodes, because it's it's not fun. It's not a good documentary in the sense that it's not sexy like a Netflix doc. It's a ton of information, and if you don't want information and you don't want to learn, you're not going to like it.
Yeah, true. Um, which leads me to something you actually covered the next question I was going to ask about victims. But I want to ask you a really weird question. And Chloe, please chime in.
Mm.
So, there are people out there that believe that if you own objects or anything that was once owned by a serial killer, serial murderer, that there's, I guess, bad things attached to it, bad karma. So, with all the things that you own of Gacy paintings, Gacy documents, photos, have you ever experienced anything weird, or I hate to use the word supernatural, but let's throw it out there?
No.
I've felt things can be heavy. The license plates in the museum are the only thing that was really weighty, but I do think that I think more paranormal kind of stuff, it, people take that on depending on what they're expecting, and it's kind of feedback and more parapsychology, I guess, than like there's actually something attached to this thing. I think something could be attached to anything if you expect there to be, but I see why people think that. And I have a lot of people that come into the museum, and they're like, "Oh, I feel so heavy up here," and I get that statement a lot. Which then I'm like, "Well, you're dealing with a lot of very heavy topics, so I don't know that it's necessarily these objects, but like just absorbing all this information that we're trying to relay to you about all these kind of different topics and all this nuanced Gacy information that we're learning day to day, and it's a lot. But yeah, I I hear that a lot about the supernatural kind of theories.
But so no weird orbs at night on the video cameras or nothing like that. The Gacy
I
run,
mean,
just
Weird shit
yeah,
happens
business
there,
as
but
usual.
yeah. There's something knocked over, and we put it up on Instagram like 3 years ago. Something knocked over the Manson Gacy piece off the wall.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not the right sort of guy for like ghost related stuff. The older I get, the more I the more I'm like, I don't care. Like, I can't. There's so much like real heavy shit that I'm dealing with emotionally. Because keep in mind, like I deal with a lot of the victims' families and surviving victims and stuff. So I mean, a lot of what I hear on a day to day basis is very heavy, sad, affecting stuff. So like the thought of like a Gacy painting feeling bad or something, like it ain't shit at this point for me.
Well, yeah, and you know, not to make light of it, but I know that in all the conversations that you and I've had over the years, that you've never made light of the victimology. You've always been very, very, um, you know, um, I guess, upset and disturbed about all the victims and what they went through, and you know, the family members. So it's not something that where John's being glorified, or you know, you're putting him on a pedestal. You literally are worried about all the stuff that happened to the family members afterwards and everything like that. So I don't want to just dismiss it that you're, you know, it's just Gacy, Gacy, Gacy. That's not it with you. You are concerned about the whole aspect of the case.
Yeah, and in fact, I want to attribute some of these victims to him, because that will give their families clarity, and it's not going to be easy. But I've already talked to several families that are like, yeah, what you're saying makes sense. My son was probably killed by John. Like, why won't the Cook County sheriff, who's a fucking douche, listen?
Yeah.
Um,
And that's what's so sad. There's such I mean, just even looking at the case from the initial arrest and even before, there's really such an apathy with the victims. And it was very much a quick to, okay, we're done. Let's just, get this guy, get him arrested, instead of like, what happened? Do we have all the victims? Because they just searched, his house, the river, and, got 33 victims and basically just called it quits. And that was it. And to this day, that's it. And that's still the official narrative.
Yeah.
When there is so much more, and not even, I don't know, there's so much more, and should be closure for, all these different people that don't have that currently.
I mean,
And
that's why all these documentaries are fucking dog shit, because they just go right along with the police narrative, and they actually, uh, on like their social media and shit, will make fun of anyone that shows interest in learning what I am calling the truth, which is, I mean, information is power. Like, I have this information. So for me to be like, well, it goes against everything and I don't want to seem like a conspiracy. Well, it's not a fucking conspiracy. I can show you the receipts. Like, it can't be a conspiracy if I have the shit.
right. And the people saying that this is a theory, that you're full of shit, they don't have that information. They're
Correct.
speaking out of ignorance. I mean, that's the same thing with anybody who shuts down some of these very legitimate, like the Franklin scandal, there are countless things that are like hoaxes and conspiracies that actually are very legitimate. But again, people speak out of ignorance because what you're fed is this official narrative and nobody wants to go against it. And typically those are, created for an easy case or an easy digestible
Well,
story, as opposed to
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
all it is.
story.
Gacy's sort of traditional story has been told again and again and again and again. And if I fucking hear another documentary or see another documentary or hear another fucking podcast go through the same bullshit again, I'm gonna slit my own throat.
Oh, but it's a deep dive. It's a
You know, we're going to be looking at 45 years this December. So,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that that's something that folks need to know who come to Savannah and visit the museum, that when they go in the Gacy room, I know, Chloe, I've seen you do it multiple times. You talk to them about the case. You sort of answer the questions and dispel some of the myths about the case, which I think is important, because people only know or consume what they've been spoon fed, and they take it as the gospel, but there's so much more to the case. Like I told my class the other night, I said, I think about the Gacy case every day. At some point during the day, something comes up. And, Ryan, I've talked to you and I've said this multiple times, I wish that I would have asked the right questions when I had the opportunity with John, but it's something that every day there's something about that case that just, and it could be something that's not even related to the case, and it'll trigger my mind, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it relates to the Gacy case, and it's just, it's probably the most interesting case in true crime, the whole true crime genre to me. Um, I've got a couple more questions, and I'm going to close out with a couple of fun ones. First of all, though, before I do that, the painting behind you, is that a Gacy painting?
Yeah. So I figured because I'm a psycho and I'm so passionate about this, this would not be fun for anyone to watch. So I brought up the it's all right, I'll grab it. It's a big one. So the lighting is not great, but so this piece is my most recent acquisition. I just got this from Karen. She was holding on to this. So the story is, John kept forcing his like hi ho paintings on Karen and her family, and she was like, "I can't fucking hang this shit in my house. It's
Weird.
ridiculous. If you want me to hang one of your pieces, send me something respectable." And so 6 months later, he sends her this, which is totally respectable, and it was in her foyer and then her living room since I've known her. But if you can see the corner, it's signed Gacy. Oh man, lighting's terrible. Anyways, it's signed Gacy 1983. Um, but the interesting part is, I don't know if you can tell, but here is the reflection of the prison cell. So it's super subtle. It's a nice, subtle Gacy piece.
No,
You can see
it's
the
amazing.
on the window.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
again, but
the
it's
camera is awful,
this.
but yes.
This will be in the museum where you can actually inspect it later. But um,
And there will be 14 available online tomorrow for purchase.
what tomorrow you said?
Yes.
But yeah, that's a that's an amazing piece, and I'm just so honored that she trusts me with all this stuff. It's really been getting to know Karen. And this might sound very stupid to a lot of people, but it's been one of the greatest things in my life. And honestly, kind of a larger thought. And you and I, James, have spoken about this. Gacy has brought a lot of really good people into my life. You, of course, being the primary example, Karen being a primary example. But like, and I don't want to name names because I don't know that they want their names named. But like, I've made very, very close, lifelong friends of people that used to know John, that have either sold me their estates or are going to sell me their estates. But beyond any of that bullshit, beyond collecting and exhibiting, just some very good people. Like way way deeper relationships than I ever made in the music industry. Like you would think there would be a lot of bonding having a record label for 23 years, but most bands are shitheads. They're like, they're very into themselves and they all think that they should be more famous than they are. And there's a lot of annoying ego. Um, Films are actually better than music, but that's neither here nor there. Point being, with like this stuff, it's been, you're truly one of my best friends at this point, and if it wasn't for Gacy, we would have never linked up.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's just wild to think. It's just wild to think, and I guess that for me, it's like I don't make money off of Gacy, and that's the difference, right? Like I'm not charging for COAs, I'm not selling paintings, I'm not selling letters. I guess you could argue that but the museum isn't a Gacy museum. It's a 5,000 square foot museum that has a single room dedicated to John. Um, so, maybe a very small percentage of ticket sales, yes, you could make that argument, but largely speaking, and even the documentary or the docu series in theory, no one's going to fucking buy it, like network, because it's too heady. It's not fun. So, which means I'm going to self-distribute it and lose a lot of money. I'm not doing any of this for money. And I think that being my true honest vessel, that I just want to tell the truth. I want people to learn about this psychopath, has actually led me to meeting such good, pure souls that he also knew. So it's very special to me.
Yeah. Something so evil could actually turn out to be something wonderful,
Exactly.
indirectly. Um, two last questions. This is going to be directed at both of you. So, Chloe, you and Ryan are the last two people on Earth, but you still have a working turntable and speakers available. What 3 albums do you have?
Chloe doesn't even like music. I'm kidding.
Oh man. Oh man. That's a tricky one. I think I always put on that Les Paul and Mary Ford record that is back there that skips a bunch. That's a staple. Um, oh man, that I don't know. I'm trying to like think of any other records now. I'm surrounded by records all day. I want all of them. um, no, I really like actually I have listened and been very fond of the the record Beachy had put out, which is Ryan's project that I was able to do the art on. That is like my little comfort record, I think, at this point. Those are top two that just are always around and always there.
No Nancy Sinatra?
Her too. She's great. She's she's into top five though.
There you go. What
I
about
mean,
you, Ryan?
the only record that you need is Slow Dive Souvlaki.
That is a good one.
That's it.
It's an amazing album.
It can be happy if you want to listen to it as happy. It can be devastatingly sad if you want to hear it like that. And it can be kind of that middle ground if you just want to zone out to music. And that's probably what I would want in that sort of situation.
Yeah, it's a great album. I always tend to go the sad route with that, but I think you need that
Yeah.
to complete you,
Yes.
And that album does. Last question. If people want to know more about you and Chloe, how would they go about doing it? Make a visit to Savannah? Come by the record shop? Come by the museum?
I'm very private, but the best way to actually get to know us would be to support the businesses, because Chloe's in the museum every day and I'm typically in the record store, which is 2 different locations every day. And then this summer I'll be in the Chicago location a lot. So, and we spend a lot of time with people. So if, yeah, I don't think James can hear us. It's kind of funny.
I don't think so either. But that was an accurate assessment and answer for me as well. Just being in person, just visiting, and yeah, I mean, I'm at the museum every day we're open, so I love chatting with people and speaking about all of these things, but also there is so much more to it. So
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching this. Seems like a good time to end it.
all right.
Peace and love.
Bye.
Hit us up if you have any questions.